And we're live. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Anarchist Guide to the Universe. Tonight we're going to be talking about commercial space companies, SpaceX, Aerojet Rocketdyne, Blue Origin, and Kurt. Who is it that you're talking about again? I'm so sorry.
Rocket Lab. That's okay. Rocket
Rocket
Lab
Lab. I
and
don't know
and
why
Sierra
I cannot.
Nevada.
I don't know why I cannot remember their name. And Sierra Nevada is the one who does Dream Chaser, right?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
cool. That I remembered. And tonight, as always, Carolina is here. Say hi, Carolina. Jerome Strack, whose last name I finally am getting correct. And Kurt Godwin. And
Hello.
I'm gonna. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead and say hi. I heard your.
Oh, I did. Sorry.
Okay.
Hello.
I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Carolina because she actually has to leave at 7:30.
Yeah,
Because
around
she has
7:30ish.
okay, she's got her brother's birthday dinner, so we don't want to
Yeah.
keep her
Yeah,
too
so
late.
happy birthday to Ramon, my brother.
Yes, happy birthday!
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah,
Um,
happy
and
birthday.
Carolina is going to be talking about Blue Origin. Um,
Yes.
and are you going to be talking any about where you went yesterday?
Yeah, I'm gonna also share about my Air and Space visit down. I went to Balboa Park and visited the Air and Space Museum they have down there. So it's an extension of the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. So they had the Apollo 9 stuff. Remind me again, it's the command module?
Yes.
Okay, the command module, aka Gumdrop. So that was on loan. They had a bunch of planes as their collection. They had a huge section about Atlas V and ULA's. Um, Basically, like their whole bearings were started in Kearney Mesa, which is right down the street from San Diego, and they expanded. And now they have a whole bunch of different facilities, and they are one of the largest space launch systems. So, um, yeah. Did you want me to
Oh.
keep talking, or I didn't know?
I'm sorry. I
It's
thought
okay.
that you were doing so well. So I'm just letting you go
I
with
mean, I
it.
can I can keep going if you want.
So yeah, why don't you go ahead since we wanted you to go
Okay.
first anyway. So yeah, go ahead and finish that, and then you could talk about Blue Origin.
Okay, yeah, it was really cool. If you guys want to see some pictures, I posted pictures, and you can go on my Twitter. It's on the lower third here. Um, yeah, there's tons of cool stuff. Airplanes. It was awesome. So I'm gonna talk about Blue Origin, founded by the Amazon.com founder Jeff Bezos. So Blue Origin is a privately funded American aerospace company providing spaceflight services and manufacturing aerospace technology. So they are kind of revolutionizing um, rocket rocket engines. So a lot of people know that we were we are currently are depending on a lot of Russian rockets for for a lot of our spacecrafts. So Blue Origins have been developing liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, different combustions techniques and stuff, and they've had a lot of success with flights with the BE3 engine, and they're working on the BE4 engine. So these rockets are reusable rockets that can be landed vertically. So that's going to definitely keep the expenses down. Did you want to add something in there, Kurt?
No,
Oh,
I was listening. I didn't know if did they come up with a timetable for that with the engine replacement?
for the release of like the BE4?
Yeah, did they talk about that?
I don't think so. I know that they're going to start the testing in 2017, but yeah, I'm not
Okay.
exactly
I
sure.
think
Jerome,
most
do you know?
people, no, well, I thought it was 2017 as well. But I
Okay.
was going to say that a lot of the people, I think right now at this point, sort of equate Blue Origin with being the engine provider for ULA. And I know that they're flying New Shepard and doing the other things that you'll probably talk about. But I think for most part, I mean, at this point, BE4 seems to be like the most important aspect of what that company's doing.
Hmm.
Um, and and so I just think that it'll be very interesting to see how they help ULA with their dilemma currently. Like you said, there's a lot of Russian stuff that's being negotiated and talked about, and I really had nothing important to add to you other than to distract you. So I'll let you go on and talk more. I was hopefully giving Kurt some time to look up when the whole B4 thing was going to happen, but
Oh, wait, is that what I was supposed to be doing?
oh, sleight of
On
hand,
cue. On
misdirection.
cue.
Missed opportunity.
So yeah, it's awesome that they're able to design these rockets as reusable rockets. Literally, for their tests that they've been running, they'll have one come in and send it out, 2 weeks later. So they're constantly testing, and like I was saying, that's going to keep the resources down. We're not going to be needing to create 50 rockets. We can make 10, use them in a different variety of patterns and different systems. So the motto, which is really interesting for Blue Origin, excuse me, because I'm definitely going to botch this because it's in Latin. Uh, it's Grandatum Ferociter, and that means in Latin, obviously, like I was just saying, by degrees, ferociously. So they're all about progress quickly. You know what I mean? So right now, Blue Origin, like we were talking about, is testing the BE4 engine, and they're going to be using that for their manned spaceflight that they're actually going to be doing for average people like me and you. So if you were at all interested in going to space at any point of your life, especially right now, if you're interested in it, definitely go on Blue Origin's website and you can read the details about how they're going to make those flights happen. I haven't read anything about the costs. I keep reading how they're going to, due to the reusable rockets and the lower cost of fuel and stuff they're trying to work on. So they're going to be making the costs low, but I don't know how low. So I don't know if you guys have heard any numbers regarding these
I don't
space
know that they've
flights.
made anything publicly available yet.
I
Okay.
think Jeff Bezos has been very quiet about a lot of the details, and it's only been recently that he's even been showing any video of New Shepard
Yeah.
flying. But certainly the number details seem to be very, very much not being discussed at all. So even when he's standing next to Tory Bruno or anybody, he's just not really revealing that information.
I wonder how
Yeah. So
competitive it's going to be with the group that with Virgin Galactic, because
yeah, they're also trying to compete with them too.
they continually miss their targets.
Yeah. So Blue Origin has had a lot more success than them. They have a lot more quality and technology for grounds for future success as opposed to Virgin. But what was I going to talk about?
Oh,
Go ahead, Gary.
I was going to ask you a question. So I know that Blue Origin, they're looking for rapid reusability, basically to land it, refuel, and refly in pretty quick succession.
Like an
And
airport type
exactly,
process.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so is that did you find any information about how close they are to that goal? Because I know that the Blue Origin, the New Shepard that they flew, is the same one. It's not a new one that they
Yeah,
trot a new one out
exactly.
every time. Did you find any information about how quickly they're able to refly it if they wanted to, if they wanted to push it?
I think it's up to like a couple weeks. I want to say like 2-3 weeks that they can redo it. Don't quote me on that though. I kind of got into the details about um, the whole humans traveling up to space and the whole details behind that.
So did they go into what If you were gonna be a customer to ride on New Shepard, did they have any info about what you could expect? Like how long would you be waitlist? What would you see out the
Exactly, yeah.
windows and stuff
That's
like that?
that's what I was interested in. So I got all those details. Yeah, so I exactly. I want to know what kind of experience. What are you paying for essentially? Are you paying for something like the zero gravity plane? I think they call it
Vomit Comet.
yeah, that's the common name. I think it's called the
Wait,
zero G or
they call it the what?
The
the
Vomit
vomit
Comet.
comet because you're literally doing parabolas up and down.
Wow, that
And
sounds terrible.
so to get the
JR would be
zero
able to talk to
gravity
us about
effect, you
that.
go straight down.
I don't even think I could watch that. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, JR was sharing about his experience on it. So essentially, if you do take this flight with Blue Origin, they like Jerome was saying, they now have videos and stuff explaining the whole experience. So their biggest kind of sell on it is that you will get your astronaut wings because you are going beyond. You're going beyond the Kármán line, so that's 100 kilometers above Earth. That's the internationally recognized edge of space. So once you go beyond that, you're officially an astronaut, quote unquote. Sorry, my screen's opposite.
So, how would you feel if you were like a NASA astronaut or a Russian cosmonaut? Then you had these schlubs that could pony up, let's say, $100,000 for a ride on New Shepard, and now they're astronauts. How would that make you feel?
Yeah, that was interesting for me to find too. I didn't know, anyone who flew an airplane, was a certified pilot and got a pilot wing. It's not as I don't think that it should be as common as it is an honor to be an astronaut. It shouldn't be just given to anyone who can pay money and go
Right.
to space. But it is a fun thing to think about. Like, hey, I am an astronaut.
Now, just to let you know, Ian Dawson, one of our excellent followers on Twitter, I love Ian's stuff. He is the RL10 Whisperer. So when we were talking about the RL10 engine a while back, he
Yeah.
sent a tweet saying the BE4 will be hot fired this year and next with the first flight around 2019.
Okay.
So
Nice.
Ian, thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Gotta love the details.
Can I just add that to Kurt's point? I thought that there was actually some lively discussion about how the very thing that he just referred to, which is that astronauts are almost offended that they would so eagerly and easily attribute that title to anybody that flies up for just a couple seconds and comes back down. So it sounded like they were recommending a different title for those folks that are passengers just riding along to float for a
That
couple
sounds
seconds.
realistic.
And I don't remember what the title was that they suggested, but I just know, and I thought Kurt was maybe going to go there with this, is that they were, to say that they were offended by it is maybe not accurate. They certainly didn't say that, but the way that they were talking about it, they were certainly passionate about their feelings regarding how easily
Yeah, for sure.
Blue Origin was going to be passing along that title. So.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a title you buy. That's just the bottom line, and I think everyone agrees upon that because astronauts, flying for NASA, they put in time, energy, they put in the schooling. Physical endurance, training. It's strenuous. So it's
No doubt.
yeah, everyone agrees it's definitely an honor. So I don't know if it'll be, kind of like when you're a kid, you get your little wings. They'll probably end up doing something like that. But they're kind of trying to sell it on their website a lot, like you're gonna get your astronaut wings, you're gonna be an official astronaut. So, and a lot of people are gonna buy into that, and that's even if you do get like a little medallion, people are still gonna like that. If I could afford it, I'm still gonna be willing to do it.
Well, sure. Look how many people will run a marathon just to get the little thing and the little medal, and they may not actually run the entire marathon. They may kind of walk and trot and have a good time with their friends, but they did it to get the medal. And so I can see that, but I can also see how the NASA astronauts, the career astronauts, may not like having the two associated together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
very
we,
true.
do we know where the ride, quote unquote, is going to be taking off from? Is it Spaceport, New Mexico, or is there some other place that Jeff Bezos is thinking they're going to fly from? Do we know?
In Texas, I believe, is the main facility that they're doing the launches. I believe.
Blue
Don't
Origin?
quote me. Yeah,
Oh, interesting.
I believe.
Because I don't know that I've heard. Kurt, have you heard?
No, I haven't. But I mean, because it's a vertical uh, ship, they're going to have somewhere with a tower. And I don't think Spaceport, New Mexico, has any sort of vertical launch facilities. I believe they're all in support of something like Virgin Galactic, where you would have the horizontal takeoff and landing. So they would either facilities have to be constructed there, or they're going to do it in Texas at the Blue Origin facilities, or somewhere in one of the coastal areas.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
because my
so
understanding. Oh, go ahead.
sorry. So you agree that they do have a Texas facility? Because I've been reading, and I'm pretty sure I read that they're going to do it out of Texas, out of
Yeah,
their Texas.
West
facility.
Texas is where their testing
Okay.
facility is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was what I had read, not heard.
But according to what we've seen and read so far, when they come back down, aren't they parachuting down? So they're not under controlled descent. Isn't that correct? I mean, I know the rocket is, but
Yeah, they're not
passengers
under controlled descent, but they have thrusters. I don't know if so that's softening the landing with the parachute, and they have it down to a couple mile radius that they know where they're gonna land. So
Yeah.
And yeah, they have that. It's kind of like on the Soyuz capsule when it comes down. They have those thrusters that fire right at landing, kind of a kick in the rear end to cushion the blow, so to speak. So when
exactly.
you see the New Shepard capsule land, you'll see this puff of dust and dirt, and that's not because the capsule is hitting so hard. That's the
Blowing.
the debris being washed up by the rockets firing.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know how many people are going to be able to ride in that module? I don't even know what the module's called of New Shepard.
Yeah, I should keep talking about. Okay, so the module seats 6 people, and it has a larger window than any other space shuttle aircraft, like your typical, Boeing 747, your typical space shuttle that, for instance, Discovery. So it has a huge 42.7-inch window. It's ginormous. So on the website, that's kind of part of their selling point is, it's a capsule similar to Orion. It's a little capsule that breaks off from the main boosters and whatnot, and it has its own little engine on it. And it's a third of the spaceship that is made out of windows. So, I mean, that is going to amplify someone's experience. I mean, incredibly. Everywhere you look, you can be seeing. Sorry,
Is
go
the
ahead.
current model they're flying now, does it have those same windows in it, or is it just mass simulators and such?
I don't know if they're flying that exact model yet. I don't know. Like I said, I'm pretty sure they're going to start testing that model in 2017. They're still working on like the Shepherd, like you were saying.
Just really quick, Andy, who is watching. Hi, Andy. He said, according to Wikipedia, Texas and Florida is going to be. He's just not sure which one's going to be for the paying passengers.
Yeah, I don't even think that they know yet, because I'm sure they have to design kind of a whole facility around that, and you don't want it at your test facility.
I'd say Florida, because West
It's
Texas
more of a vacation spot.
Well,
Yeah, no one wants to go to
do.
West.
Yeah, no, they're going to sell this as part of a package, and so
Exactly.
there'll be probably deluxe accommodations. And sorry, you just don't go out to West Texas nowhere for deluxe accommodations.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience. So you go a couple days before your actual day of your flight, and you do the training for 2 days, and then it's the day of your flight. You do the pre-flight check, and the flight goes up. 150 seconds goes by, and you're going up to 3+ Gs of acceleration on your way up at a speed of Mach 3+. So you're going pretty fast. Pretty amazing. And the rocket is 60 feet tall. So that's the.
And they're saying what, later this year for crewed test flights, and then maybe paying customers next year?
I don't know paying customers that soon. I know that they're going to be testing the BE4 and with the actual module, like I was saying, with the big windows and stuff, starting 2017 altogether.
Okay.
Like their whole product. See how it's going to work. They've been testing, all the different components, but see how everything works together is going to be its selling point. Oh, so it goes up 150 seconds. The engine shuts off, and you kind of just coast into space. And then, similar to flying to Honolulu or flying to wherever, at the point where the thrusters are off after that 150 seconds, they will turn off the seatbelt sign, and you can float about, and you experience zero gravity and the whole weightlessness, and you get a period of time where you experience that. They didn't release the amount of time total of the flight, or like total that you're actually floating in space, but after a certain point of experiencing the no gravity, they say, okay, you have to put on your seatbelt. The seatbelt sign goes back on, and then you start the re-entry process. And then on re-entry, you actually experience up to 5 Gs of acceleration coming back down. So you're just coming in hot.
So what are their physical requirements? Have they outlined, what sort of level of health that a person would need to be to take a ride on this?
They haven't really done any specifics like that. If you go on their website and look at the details, basically you can just get newsletters, and so hopefully by subscribing to that, you'll get more details, maybe in a privater sense, or more contact information with them. So I signed up for that so that I can be in contact with them and find out some more details. So I encourage other people to, even if you're like, oh, I don't know if I can afford it. Hey, I can't afford it if it's $1,000, but the dream's still there, and one day, hopefully, it will be affordable.
Cool.
So that's a little bit about Blue Origin.
And they were first to land the rocket, correct?
Yes.
The rocket upright, yeah, before SpaceX.
Yeah.
SpaceX just took it up a notch by doing the drone barge.
Well, of course they're gonna.
Yeah, and that's, I feel like, why they did that. They were like, okay, yeah, we did the upright, but someone else already did that. So
Now, I don't know if Kurt, you might know, or Caroline, if you saw anything while you're researching the size of the rocket. Does that have it? Like when SpaceX landed on the last one, how it bounced. Does it have anything to do with the fact that it's taller? Maybe the fact that Blue Origin has a shorter rocket. Maybe it wouldn't bounce. I mean, what are the good things about having the rocket be smaller?
Well, there are some. Yeah, there's that, but like the Falcon 9, because it's so much taller, it has a much bigger area for wind loading. So it presents a bigger profile to any sort of crosswinds, and so it acts like a sail, much more so than the smaller Blue Origin rocket was. But I think Bezos, when he was talking about it when they had landed the New Shepard the first time, saying that it was more difficult to stabilize a shorter vehicle, and he used the whole broomstick in a palm analogy. So if you had a broomstick in the palm of your hand and were moving it around like this, it's easier to balance the taller one than it is if you had a pencil in your hand and were trying to balance that. So I'm not a rocket engineer, so I can't speak to the truth of either of those. But he said that it is more difficult to maneuver and balance the smaller one than it is a larger rocket.
Well,
that's interesting. I thought the smaller one would have been easier.
That is very interesting.
So I would offer 2 points of view about that. Not that it matters who's first and who's not, but Grasshopper from SpaceX was flying well before any of the stuff was flying with Blue Origin, I believe. And it's the trajectory and the velocity with which the rockets are flying that are kind of the big thing that Elon is trying to say. Look, it's great that they were able to accomplish what they accomplished, but our rocket's going a hell of a lot faster, and we have to bring it back. And that's kind of a much bigger deal. But these are two guys who are both doing some extraordinary things that are kind of not been seen in this industry for a long period of time, and to both of them, it's a huge success. And it's just them trying to one up each other as to the details of to why one it might be better than the other or more of an accomplishment. But I mean, not to take anything away from either of the guys, it's something that many people have thought would be impossible, and they're both doing it kind of at the same time, and so it's just an impressive feat regardless.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely is. Yeah, I agree. Okay, any more questions or anything else, Carolina?
No, yeah, not for me. Everyone go check out blueorigin.com. Oh, fun thing is, Blue Origin, their name originated, no pun intended, their name originated because they want, this whole commercial spaceflight industry to really take off, and Jeff Bezos is really driven by that, and basically Blue Origin reflects how the planet Earth, our blue planet, is all our home. Despite wherever in space we end up or we're exploring, where we have our little inflatable capsule, we're exploring out in whatever galaxy, that we will still all, have our blue origin. So that's kind of cool.
I like what they're doing. I mean, it's honestly, I mean, when I looked at Bezos and really Musk, and I wrote about this a while back, thinking that it was nothing more than the ego of a billionaire trying to just get his name out in the news. I never really thought that either one of these people would be successful, and not only successful, but pushing the boundaries, and they both are. And to your point, Jerome, yeah, the Blue Origin rocket, the New Shepard, it's not in the same class as what they're doing with what SpaceX is doing with the Falcon. But you're right; they're just as important in their own different ways, and I think it's very exciting to see what may be coming out of this.
I totally agree,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I didn't expect anything to come from Jeff Bezos' company. I mean, it just felt like it was something that he was kind of quote playing with.
A Me Too thing.
And, yeah, and he's kept it under the radar for a long time. And then as we start to learn more and more about what they're doing and certainly their accomplishments, I think it was he himself that described that. Some people have joked about the fact that he started Amazon.com to help fund what his true love is, which is space. And so, whether or not that's true, whether or not how much money he's funneling from that, we know that the guy is a multi-billionaire, and he certainly can afford to do this, and he really wants to do that clearly because he's putting his money where his mouth is, and he's accomplishing some really amazing things as well. And who knows where this is going to go? I mean, I think again the biggest thing that's going to be the thing that most people in aerospace will remember is the B-4 that's going to be put on ULA's rockets, and we'll see how that goes. I don't know if the space industry is going to allow for people going up and paying a lot of money to float around and come back down. I don't know how big of a business market that's going to be. I mean, Richard Branson seems to think it's going to be as well. But I think the BE4 is kind of the big thing for them. And then Elon Musk is doing the same thing, right? He's a multi-billionaire. He's putting money where his mouth is, and he's kind of going about it differently, certainly with a different end goal. So I think it was awesome what you shared, Carolina, and I just think it's one of the most interesting companies to watch, only because he has not really PR'd it very much, really. So
Yeah,
He's doing a lot too.
For a billionaire who got where he is by having a bit of an ego, I would think their company is very tight-lipped. So it's interesting. So I do have one question for you, Carolina, just in closing.
Mm-hmm.
What one thing did you want to know about Blue Origin that you didn't find, and what was one thing that you wanted to know or you found out that was kind of cool?
Let me think. Their motto was definitely really cool. Also, I found out something about Jeff Bezos being back in high school. He was in an interview, and he had his ambition of basically saving the planet by moving people to space in a comfortable living situation because of our overconsumption of fossil fuels and stuff. And if we are smart enough to create sustainable habitats in space that are reusable type energy things, and we do develop green rocket fuel like Kurt has talked about and stuff, we can reduce the impact on our environment. So that was really cool. Something I wanted to learn about Blue Origin that I did. Oh, definitely about the prices about these space flights. Because I definitely want to be a candidate. I want to know, what are the physical requirements? Do you have to do training for? Do you have to take classes? I'm sure there's lots of technological things that you're going to deal with. For instance, the spacecraft that they're going to be using, the one I was talking about with the giant windows and stuff, they're going to be using for the commercial space flights to space. It has an emergency escape system. That's what they call it. So that upon launch, if something breaks down, if some systems catch fire, they can release themselves and come back down to space safely. So that's really cool, but I'm sure you have to get some kind of training behind that. So
Yeah,
definitely the cost and the specifications behind it.
I do want to point out that Ian said, to be fair, the DCX launched and landed vertically a few times in the 90s with RL-10s.
Yeah, totally. No, they've said that Musk was not first either, and it was happening a long time ago, and that's absolutely true. This is not a new thing that they're trying, and even landing at sea is not a new idea, right? We heard that Jeff Bezos and Elon were going at it in court as to what they could call the barge landing or whatever, and I don't know if that's even part of why Elon is so adamant about referring to his barges as ships. But regardless, it is something that has happened in the past, and neither person can really claim that they did it first. Ian's absolutely right.
Yeah, but I definitely think that this will take off, because if people pay thousands of dollars, to climb Mount Everest and stuff. I was just watching something about Sherpas the other day, and it was a great program. But if people pay thousands of dollars, people are going to pay thousands of dollars. Even if this costs $1 million, there's going to be people who are going to pay that price and get this experience.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's always someone that can afford it.
No
Even if it's Kanye West, maybe if the Kardashians will be the first to get there,
No.
But hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Do that? Why would you
What
do
is happening?
Like that?
No, we've devolved.
Said the dirty K word. What is your problem?
The dirty K.
I actually heard that Kanye's the one that actually did it first, who took off and landed. So that's just what he said.
Okay.
I don't know if that's accurate. Yeah.
Oh my God. If it was
all right.
Anyways.
Nice eye rolls.
Okay.
I don't think they'd meet the educational requirements. The
Whoa.
written test.
Now we're throwing shots.
High five, Carolina.
All right.
Okay. See, I told you guys there'd be shenanigans.
The views
Oh,
and
yeah.
expressions
Oh, yeah.
and opinions shared during the show does not reflect all of the members
Yes.
at the bottom of the screen point
They're
of views.
strictly our own.
Well, and Jerome's. Jerome believes every bad thing we say. It actually
Everything.
He does.
Everything.
He does. He thinks I'm
It's
the
true.
Antichrist. He does.
I didn't say
Okay.
that. I did not.
I can see that.
I'm an evil redheaded woman.
I
Would you
can
like
see
an
that too.
apple?
Oh, so we've gone from Russian to evil.
Oh Oh my goodness. Okay. So, is there anything else about Blue Origin that you guys want to talk about?
Not for me. Everyone definitely should just go on the website and go figure it out themselves.
Okay. Um, Kurt, did you want to talk about
Come on, you can say it.
Rocket Labs?
Yes, there you go.
Yay! Rocket
I
Labs.
swear I am not dense. I am not dense. I just, for some reason, I cannot get that name to stick. It took me the longest time to get Aerojet Rocketdyne. Could not pronounce that name to save my soul.
Yes, I know you kept calling. What were you saying in the planning notes? What did you call this?
Oh,
You know what? No, I'm not saying it. You're such a bastard. Oh,
Yeah, and it took. How long did it take to find it?
I feel like I missed the joke.
What you're missing, Carolina, is that sometimes Miss Rochelle decides to put in snarky little comments in the show reminders, and it took me a couple of days to find it.
well, I want to see who's paying attention.
I don't think I was paying attention.
You were not. You so were not paying attention, and I swear, if I have to hear Jerome ask me one more time, is it on the calendar? Is it on the calendar? Is it on the calendar?
Wait, we have a calendar? Okay, wait, that's another session.
Right? Do we have a calendar? Thank you, Carolina. Do we have a calendar? Because
I do not like any of you right now. You guys all suck.
can we just really quickly? Can we just point out
Yes.
that Filet and Rosetta back there are watching very patiently, and they're not judging us.
At all. My
They're judging
Rosetta,
you.
my Rosetta and my Filet are my little mascot, and I love them. My poor little Filet.
They're on their lunch
Filet,
break.
filet. Yeah, they are.
That's what they do on their breaks.
Okay, so do you want me to talk about Rocket Lab?
Do you want to talk
Yeah.
about Rocket Lab?
I guess. I mean, I kind of
Okay.
read up on them.
I want you
Good
to.
idea. All right, so Rocket Lab is a joint New Zealand and U.S. based company who the market they're going after are the small satellite market. Because it appears that launch needs are going in kind of two directions: the smaller satellites, and then you have your big national security payloads and spaceflight and things like that. So these mid-range, that becomes less and less. Like if you look at the Ariane, when it launches, they try to co-manifest two mid-sized satellites so they can make use of the rocket's carrying capability. So, and I think they had trouble in their last flight to put a secondary payload on there, and so they launched with a lot of the rocket's capability being unused. So what Rocket Lab is doing is they're building the body as all carbon composite, so it's much lighter. They've got their own homegrown engine that they're using, which is all primary components are 3D printed. So that's kind of interesting. It's called the Rutherford engine. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick here.
All of it's 3D printed?
All
said
primary
all of it's
components.
3D?
Now, I'm sure there's
Oh, all the-
some. I'm sure there's some
Okay.
that are machined, but by
I
and
was
large,
like, wow.
no.
Oh,
So if you look at that is the Rutherford engine, and you can see the 3D print lines on it, down the combustion chamber and out through the nozzle. But one of the cooler things is it's battery powered. It's electrically powered turbopumps. So what to add all this additional plumbing, because if you look at this engine, it looks to be a very simple design. You don't see all of the different plumbing lines that you would see on like the RS-25, the old Space Shuttle main engines, or the RS-68s, or even the RD-180s that are on the Atlas V. This is a very simple engine. And they use batteries to power the turbopumps, so they're not having to waste the propellant and oxidizer or the fuel and the oxidizer to power the turbopumps, so they don't have to have the pre-burners or the expansions and all this. So it's a very, very simple engine, very easy to manufacture. They can, as far as engines go, they can churn them out at a fairly quick rate. And it's a two-stage rocket, and it's called the Electron. Let me pull that up. So you can see what it looks. Of course, got the big play button there in the center of it. What they're looking at is a less than $5 million total cost for a launch. And that will get 100 to 120 kilograms to a 500-kilometer sun-synchronous orbit, which, if I remember what I read, which didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time, is that the payload or the satellite passes over the same spot on Earth at the same solar time every day. So that's apparently the market that is really needing a good launcher for. So with the rocket being carbon composite, it's very light. They can get the entire mass to orbit for less fuel than they said it takes to fly from San Francisco to Los Angeles on a traditional carrier passenger jet. So it's very fuel efficient as far as that goes. You can see here the pricing just for launch and integration services, $50,000 for a 1U CubeSat. I mean, you still have to pay to develop your own CubeSat and build all that, but I mean, there are places that have that information that you can do. You can buy these services pretty cheap. So research institutions, which I don't know if you followed along, any of our viewers, when JPL had their CubeSat thing, was it earlier this week? Last week? I don't know. Everything goes, time flies.
I think it was last week, like last Thursday.
So you see that you can do a lot of things in a small CubeSat package, and so if you can pay $50,000 or $180,000 for launch and integration services in addition to the cost of your satellite, this is really cheap getting your payload to orbit. And so that is a really, really cool thing that they're working on. They look to launch from New Zealand, and part of that is the company did not want to have to deal with the red tape that often comes with launching from the U.S. With all the military and FAA regulations and things like that. They're looking to have a launch cadence of about one per week. That's what they say that they will be able to support. So with launching from the U.S., a little bit more paperwork, but they know that they will have customers that do want to launch from the United States, and so they are working with the FAA to get clearance for that. You can see here that they're designing it to be plug and play for payloads. You have standardized sizes, standardized footprints, all fits within the payload fairing, which you can see here. It's carbon composite, and there's going to be 9 engines in the first stage, much like SpaceX's Falcon 9, and then a single vacuum variant of the same engine on the second stage. And they've done some test firings.
Frank, that was a beautiful picture, though. Just saying.
Which one?
The last one you had. Oh yeah, that was a great picture.
But they've done testing, and I believe it was in the southwestern U.S. But again, this is an electrically powered engine, which is really, really cool. It cuts down the complexity quite a bit. So if they're able to get this sort of rocket firing, less than $5 million, getting payload to orbit, this could be a game changer in the small satellite market. Even though SpaceX is trying to go the route of reusable rockets, and this will be a completely expendable rocket, when you're getting the prices down to, and I can't believe I'm saying that $5 million is cheap, but that's cheap for this. That I think can change the game on that side of the market. And I know Jerome, you'll appreciate this, having a programming background. So the avionics computer weighs just 19 pounds compared to what they had on the shuttle, which was 10,000 pounds. So 19 pounds versus 10,000. So yes, I know it's not the same thing, not the same sort of channels of data it's going to have to monitor, but that's still pretty cool that they're able to control this entire rocket with 19 pounds of hardware. So that's kind of Rocket Lab in a nutshell. I would encourage anybody who wants to read more up on the company. Their website is actually pretty good. You can see here's the founder and CEO, Peter Beck, where they've got the designs of this is their second stage. So here's the nozzle extension for the vacuum version of the engine. Here's the first stage with the 9-engine configuration. But go take a look at their site. They've got on the propulsion page in particular, there is a video It's not super exciting, but it is kind of cool to watch it go through its paces. It's about a 3-minute long video, so it's not like it's going to suck your life away to watch it, and it's cool. So I would say definitely take some time to view it. So, anybody have any questions about Rocket Lab?
I do. Do
Okay.
they have any facilities out in the U.S. over here?
Right now, they have testing facilities, I believe, that they're doing with their engines.
Okay.
When it comes to launching, they are working with the FAA, and I believe I saw an article in Florida today that they have open talks with Kennedy Space Center, because Kennedy opened, because there's Pad 39A and 39B, which launched the Saturn V rockets and for Skylab and Shuttle, and now they've got SpaceX has leased 39A, I believe. Is that right, Jerome? Yes, okay. And 39B is going to be used for SLS. Has actually got a clean pad architecture, but Kennedy has built Pad 39C, so it's part of the Launch Complex 39, but it's going to be for smaller rockets, and I would assume something like Rocket Lab would be a prime customer for something like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Any other questions?
Regarding the $5 million price tag, I mean, if we're talking about the CubeSats, that I've heard a lot of the appeal for that particular architecture is for the education sector, right? So any universities where they've got students that want to put things up, they've been typically piggybacking with other launch payloads. So if that is the case, unless there's somebody else out there that's thinking they've got some commercial use for something that size, the 5 million is still an unattainable goal. But the thing that I have read and heard more about this company, I've just heard a lot of doubt as to whether or not they're actually going to be able to pull it off. So I guess until we start to see flights happening, we'll stay open-minded about it for sure. But I've heard a lot of naysayers, as well as, those people that are naysayers, those people.
Yes.
Yeah. But until it happens, I mean, we have to keep an open mind. So I think that if they can pull it off, that'd be great. I just feel like the $5 million, if you compare, it just feels like it's still way too much money for the size of the payload that it's taking. So I guess we'll see what it ends up being for sure.
I'll talk to that in just a moment, but I think we have an announcement.
Carolina needs to go. She needs to go to
Yeah, I'm
her
sorry.
dinner. So she's going to be leaving us, but thank you for coming on for the hour, Carolina, and talking about more.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Of course, yeah. You guys have a great night. Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right, you too.
Carolina.
Have fun.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Now, Jerome, to your question, the $4.9 million for the launch and integration services, that is using the full capabilities of the rocket. So when you break it down to, if you just had a 1U CubeSat, you're looking at launch and integration services of a price of about $50,000. So that's a very doable price to get a 1U CubeSat, and their 3U CubeSat for launch and integration was, I think, starting at 180. So yeah, it's a little steeper, but 180K to get a 3U CubeSat can do quite a lot of science, quite a lot of data gathering.
Yeah.
I don't
Well, and
think
even
that's a terribly bad price.
and that figure is it's very different than the 5 million or the 4.9. I mean, we just lost $100,000 right there between the 5 to 4.9. So, I mean, 180,000 a launch, definitely you're now back into the range of where somebody would seriously be able to cover that, even if it is just a school or somebody else.
Yeah, the 4.9 is if you had a 120 kilogram satellite and you needed all the oomph for the rocket, you're paying for the full price.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see if they can pull this off. I mean, I know that a lot of people have talked about using a smaller rocket to take up much smaller payloads like the CubeSats, and so it'll be interesting to see if somebody can pull that off. And these folks certainly have been talked about enough and have been around long enough to where they seem to be at the forefront. Maybe there's other people out there that are quiet like Jeff Bezos, but it'll be interesting to see what they are able to pull off. And I think obviously the interesting thing is that it's electric, and so that definitely puts it in its own class. So
cool. Any other questions? I think it's also cool, the carbon composite body. That's That's interesting. I don't know how well that would scale to a larger rocket, so it may only be that we're at the upper end of what carbon composite could do, because maybe a larger body would not fare so well with carbon composite. But it'll be interesting to see what sort of engineering data they get back from any sort of test launch.
Right. And I had a question, and then it just totally escaped me. Hold on. They're in New Zealand, and I'm sorry if I missed it if you said it, but is there plans for them to fly it here in the U.S., or where are they going to be flying it?
They predominantly want to fly out of New Zealand because of the different orbits that are available to them from that latitude. But they know that they will have some customers that must fly out of the U.S. for either national security reasons, or that's just what they want. And so, yeah, they are working with the FAA and Kennedy Space Center to procure some sort of launch facilities for use in those circumstances.
Mm-hmm. And the rocket itself is not retrievable. It's
Correct.
A one-time use.
Correct. Yeah. It's one and done.
I definitely want to read more about it, because it's something that has been around long enough now to where it keeps whittling its way into the discussion whenever something like this comes up. And I think there's so much emphasis right now on the CubeSats. It's very exciting. The talk that you were covering, I think it was Thursday at JPL, about the CubeSats. I mean, that whole topic and discussion is fascinating in itself. And yeah, they can piggyback on these other much larger payloads, but to have dedicated launches for just those little guys, I think would be very interesting. It'd be a really cool thing. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Is there anything else about?
Not Rocket Lab, but after Jerome is done, I want to talk about Sierra Nevada.
Okay, I think that's a good idea.
Sierra Nevada.
Jerome, I'm going to toss it over to you, to dorks. Toss it over to you to talk about your beloved SpaceX.
You are supposed to be more encouraging and not so.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's very encouraging.
Hey, I follow what SpaceX does a little bit. I'm certainly not the most well versed on what they do. There's a lot of things that I don't know, and there's a lot of things that I've forgotten. I know that Elon's.
You make my appreciation of Tory Bruno look like child's play compared to how much you love Elon Musk.
Now let's just hold on here. I like Elon Musk and what he's doing. I've never met the man. I've never talked to him, and I'm more following his businesses than the man himself, although his birthday is your birthday, so we know that. But, it's...
I bet if we looked at Jerome's sketchpad, it's going to say JS plus EM on there somewhere.
Wow. That is just not true. It's just not true. Elon, if you're watching, call me.
Yeah.
No.
Your digits.
I'm going to talk about SpaceX. I'm not going to talk about Elon Musk, although it's hard to not talk about SpaceX and not bring up Elon Musk. But we'll go from there.
If you can get through if you can get through your entire post and not over Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
I would be surprised.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's just give it a shot and see where we go. And if I start to talk a lot about Elon, give me the hashtag and I'll know that I'm talking too much about it.
So we won't give you the hashtag just because we want
to... I'm going to start off with where Elon was born and how much he weighed, and if he has any siblings. No, I'm just joking. Okay, so
but
SpaceX.
You do know that. You know his mom's name. You know his sister's name.
I don't. And let's not make it look like I'm a stalker. Thank you. Okay, so SpaceX, founded in 2002. Why? Because Elon, there's one. Elon flew to Russia the year before because he wanted to see if he could buy some ICBMs so that he could do this whole Project Oasis thing where he wanted to send a portable greenhouse to Mars. And so he and a couple buddies end up going over to Russia like 4 times, but they get the sense that they're not taking them seriously, and Elon at that point had made some money off of a smaller company, Zip2, and so his whole impetus and catalyst for doing this was that he thought NASA would be doing a whole Mars thing, and he goes online, can't find it, and decides that, well, maybe I can do it, and it would be kind of fun to reinvigorate people's passion about aerospace and whatnot. Goes to Russia. Russia laughs at him. He gets mad, and he decides that, well, I mean, how much could it cost to build a rocket company, right? I mean, it wouldn't take that much money. So they end up starting SpaceX in 2002, and he ends up meeting Tom Mueller, who's the guy that ends up designing the Merlin engines and a couple other things that he's worked on, I'm sure. But he's a guy that's very passionate about rocket engines, to say the least. And I think he was working at TRW at the time, and so he was doing some model club stuff out at Mojave Desert. And Guy heard that Tom Mueller was doing it, mentioned it to Elon. Elon goes over and talks to him, and one thing leads to another, and he's kind of the backbone behind the propulsion systems at SpaceX. And then at the same time in 2002, Gwen Shotwell comes on board as a salesperson lead, I think it was, and now she's president and COO of the company. So those are kind of the three main players that started the company. Company has grown to 5,000 people now, is my understanding, and of course it's expanded hugely. But before we make that leap, we'll just say that they haven't sent anything to Mars yet, and there's certainly been a lot of disappointments at the beginning when they were trying to fly rockets. But they did start a rocket company, and they did launch the Falcon 1 a few times with some failures, although my understanding is that the third time was very close to being successful. But at that point, they didn't have any money to do a fourth launch, and then I think Elon has described that somehow they got the money together, they were able to do the fourth launch, and it made it just fine, and so they were able to then secure some funding.
Didn't they get a NASA contract or something for that fourth launch, or a contract for a future launch that they were then able to funnel money into that fourth Falcon one, or something like that?
I swear that he didn't get funding until after they proved that the rocket worked, and I just know that the story was that it was a week before Christmas, and he ended up getting money that saved him. And I believe that the money that saved him was from NASA. Now, whether or not the fourth launch fell before that or after that, I really believe it was before that. I don't remember them funding him until he had proven that the technology worked. So we'll just assume that that's the case. And of course, then they started going towards the larger rockets with the Falcon 9, where it had 9 engines as opposed to the Falcon 1 that had 1 engine. And the Merlin 1D became the backbone behind all of that. And it was quite an impressive rocket for starting with nothing and getting to where they needed to go within, I think it was 6 years. I think it was something like that. Before you know it, they're flying then the COTS program, the CRS resupply Dragons that were going up to the ISS. They were doing that, as well as some other items that were on their manifest. And they were able to really jump into it both feet, and they were able to secure a lot of folks for that manifest, because they came out and said, I don't understand why the rockets are costing as much as they are. We should be able to do it for much, much less. And last I heard, they're saying that Falcon 9 is somewhere between 60 to 70 million, and to do any of the more technical things that they needed to do for the Air Force, for the government, essentially, it would probably tack on another 30 million, which is kind of where the whole discussion between ULA and SpaceX came in about being ready to fly, or being able to maintain and handle all of the complex systems that you would need to be ready to launch their satellites. But essentially,
that was the argument that SpaceX had against ULA, correct? That that the reason ULA's launches cost so much is that the government was paying this ready standby fee, to make sure that national security payloads could be ready to fly at a moment's notice, so to speak.
Right. And it's because of that discussion that I think a lot of people were able to get a more accurate view as to how the government was paying ULA. And ULA, again, is the combination of Boeing and Lockheed Martin that created the ULA entity. And some would argue that, well, they created then the monopoly, which was able to make some of the launches, like I believe the Delta IV Heavy, cost as much as $300–400 million, something to that effect. But Kurt, you're absolutely right. So the whole point was that, and there was a lot of discussion about this, especially because Elon and Gwen Shotwell brought this up in front of committees in which ULA was saying, we were told to be on standby all the time, and we had to be ready to fly. And the only way that you can keep personnel and different hardware architecture available was to have a large sum of money that was dedicated to having these things basically on call for all intents and purposes. So it's when you try to then calculate then how much each flight costs that it may or may not be apples and apples. But regardless, what we do know is that if SpaceX is able to pull off $60–70 million launches, that still seems to be well below what everybody else is offering, including China. So, we'll jump ahead for just a second and say, and if they can actually refurbish the rockets and relaunch them with just a $300,000 fuel bill, I'm sure that it's not that it just costs $300,000 to launch it, but I think he even said $10–20 million or something to that effect. I mean, now you're talking about such apples and oranges in cost expense that it's going to be really hard to compete with that. Russia, ESA, I mean, anybody to compete with that kind of pricing. But we have to wait and see if that is actually what's going to happen.
All right, so let me kind of play devil's advocate in that for a moment. Do you mind?
Sure.
Would you rather hold questions till you're done, or do you like them in line? Which do you prefer?
No, I don't mind. Go ahead.
Okay. So I agree. I mean, getting the launch prices down, I think, is critical towards us becoming a spacefaring species, and getting as much as we can for as little as possible is critical. But let's take that to the extreme. Let's say that SpaceX runs everyone out of business because nobody can compete on price. Then what incentive is there for SpaceX to keep prices low?
So, I mean, we can play devil's advocate and say that, well, so if they become the new monopoly, then yeah, what is their motivation? I don't think that SpaceX will become the only player in this game. I think what is really causing some people to stand up and notice and realize is that it can be done for less money. How much less money, I think that still remains to be seen. Where I think that they really deserve a lot of credit is in the push for innovation, and I think that is something that hopefully people stand up and take notice, as opposed to the bean counters that say, well, but we're able to launch at 60–70 million, and maybe it's going to be more as we find out that supporting that government on the fly, we need to fly this moment sort of approach requires extra money, and so that the cost of the launches go up. All that still remains to be seen, and that's not even touching on the whole Falcon Heavy thing that's going on right now and how much that will cost. SpaceX, I don't think, is out to drive everybody out of business. But Elon Musk is a competitive businessman, and maybe that is the end result of what's going to happen. I believe that it's just simply readjusting what was already kind of a runaway price train in which companies were able to charge unchecked what they wanted to fly their hardware. And I don't know that SpaceX won't be the only entity out there. I find that really hard to believe that would happen. And I hope that we have multiple launch providers. I personally really hope that stays to be a fact and not just something that we used to have and we talk about as in the past. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know that anybody knows what's going to happen. But I think the clear thing that we can all stand back and agree upon is that the innovation and the push for innovation is what is something that's going to end up benefiting everybody. And I think that will be interesting to see what happens. And even the Vulcan from ULA, there's talk about how they're going to have the engines fly back, parasail, helicopter recover, and that's a big chunk of the money that goes in that first booster anyway. So, I mean, all of that is I don't know if we can give all the credit to SpaceX for motivating people to have to figure out these things, but certainly they played a role in that. And I know that Russia's probably looking at similar scenarios where they've got to decide how they're going to progress in the future with different technology. So I personally think that they're not going to be the only game in town. I just know that they are somebody that is pushing innovation, which has in turn forced prices to come down, and we'll see how that plays out over time.
All right, so I'm sorry, go ahead, Rochelle.
I'm sorry, just really quick. I have a feeling Russia is going to have to come up with something fast, because I don't want to sound it just seems like the Russian Space Agency seems to be kind of going on a downward slope, and I hate seeing that. It sucks, and I think that Russia's gonna, or probably has something up their sleeve, hopefully, because I don't want to see SpaceX be the only game in town at all.
Yeah. Well, we know that Russia's been around a long time, and the reason that they've been around a long time is because their hardware's been pretty solid. So the thing that they seem to be stuck in the mud about, though, is, again, the innovation and the ability to build on what they've got going on. So a lot of the hardware that we see where the astronauts are flying, it seems to be the same stuff that they were flying way back when, right? So whether or not they change up and create something more innovative, I think is going to come down to what kind of budget Putin's going to throw at the space agency over there, Roscosmos. So we'll see what happens as far as Russia's concerned, but it could be to where Russia just picks a very select clientele for who they are going to service. The fact that they are sending up American astronauts rubs me the wrong way, and I'm not somebody that is like, oh, well, we got to do USA all the way, all the time. But it is something that's a little bit. You take a step back when you realize that we went from shuttle to now we're depending upon Russia to put our folk up on ISS or to do any of that stuff.
And not even that, but Russian engines on the Atlas V. So the Russian.
Yeah, that's the salt in the wound. It feels like to me.
It really, yes, it is. I agree.
So and I'm glad that Russia and the U.S. are working together, but it does really feel like we seem to have got blindsided by this, and I don't know how that worked. I don't know if Congress is to blame, whatever. But let's get our stuff working again. The Dragon, to go back to SpaceX, is capable of taking 7 folk up to space station, and Soyuz is taking 3 up right now. So I mean that's a big
and very little down mass capability too. They can't bring hardly anything back other than put stuff in the orbital module and dispose of it on reentry, but for refurbishment. They have to dispose of them.
Exactly right. So what Dragon offers is, again, for a company that kind of came out of nowhere, brought some technology that really seemed to happen at just the right time. And we've got Dragon now that's going to be able to, Dragon version 2, that's going to be able to take the astronauts up. And as Kurt said, we're using Dragons right now to take up a lot of cargo. I think it's 7,000, isn't it? 7,000 pounds right now, something like that, 7,700 pounds to the space station, and then have the down mass of whatever it is, 5,000-6,000, whatever it is. And they hope to be able to eventually, land those on land wherever they want to. And so if they can land in Texas, you're going to save a whole bunch of time, which from the ISS perspective, you're able to then bring back some of the science payload and not have that transportation hiccup that happens for 2, 3, 4 days, whatever it is. Right. To ship it out of the ocean, retrieve it out of the ocean, get it back to port in San Diego, whatever, and get it on a truck or however they send it back. So that's very appealing. The Dragon is doing pretty well. And other than Sierra 7, where we lost the rocket there, SpaceX has had a pretty phenomenal track record and have accomplished some really kind of amazing things, making them the first private company to accomplish a lot of those things that other companies have been doing, like orbital sending up the Cygnus, or Russia sending up Progress, or even the Japanese aerospace folks sending up their stuff. It's just impressive what SpaceX has accomplished, and it took a lot of money on Elon's part, and then of course they got a lot of funding that came from Google and some other funding organizations to help keep it alive until they could get those NASA contracts. And a lot of people think that Elon specifically has been depending upon a lot of, quote, charity from the government, but a lot of what he's getting is pay-as-you-go sort of contracts, and I think it's just well earned. And in many cases, when you look at what he's competing against, his bids are often far less than what the other companies are doing. So I think they're a pretty extraordinary company right now. There's a lot of things that they have planned for in the future. the Mars Colonial Transport is, again, ultimately kind of what Elon is saying the company was sort of founded for. It was to talk about what it would take to get people to other bodies, and Mars being specifically the destination for what he wants to do first. But that's going to be talked about more in September in Guadalajara, I guess. I don't remember what the name of the show is, but that's where he's going to reveal a lot of the plans for the MCT.
Right, so I have a question.
Sure.
I'm sorry. No, I was sorry. I interrupted you. I had the question I wanted to ask, and go ahead.
Interrupt and ask away.
All right. So you are an admitted SpaceX fanboy.
Yeah.
All right. So with that premise, what about SpaceX don't you like? What could you think they can improve upon?
I know a lot of people have really enjoyed ULA's footage, live video feeds that they get from when they do the launches, and when they have worked on launching any of their payloads. And SpaceX seems to, at the beginning, not have been so much about sharing, although ironically they do end up sharing a lot of the quote catastrophes that occurred when trying to land at the barge. But I think there was a lot of secrecy at the beginning where we all sort of expected that they would be more open about some of the accomplishments that they were dealing with. And it seems to be better now than it was not that long ago, so I'm real happy about that. And both ULA and SpaceX are sending back some just phenomenal video of different things. What don't I like about what SpaceX is doing? Yeah, if I can't think of anything, then it's really going to look like I'm a hardcore hashtag fan, isn't it?
That's right. I painted you into a corner.
You really did.
That was actually a really good question.
I have good ideas every now and then.
But then again, that would be like you asking me to say something about ULA and Tori Bruno and.
Because, all right, Jerome, I can tell you how I would answer the question. Sorry.
I would.
But let me just say, I think it's an excellent question. It's an excellent question to ask because it does force you to look at something objectively. And what I would say is that I don't think that SpaceX is perfect in any way or stretch of the imagination. I think that there's certainly room that they can improve upon. I just being caught right now. I am struggling to come up with something right now, I know that that's not going to be the case later on tonight when I'm laying in bed and going, oh, I could have said that and that. So go ahead and answer the question for me.
Spasm in bed. All right. So if I were asked the question, I would say of the over-promising and under-delivering.
Yeah.
Falcon Heavy was supposed to fly 4 years ago. What was their launch cadence supposed to be this year, and they're not on track for maybe not even half that at this point. There's no way they're going to match what they said they were going to launch. So that's where I think they have fallen far short, and that you asked me a question before to kind of a litmus test on how I felt about SLS, and I think that similar litmus test can be held towards a lot of SpaceX fans. Is what do you think they're not doing right? And to me, that is probably the top answer as far as I'm concerned. Saying they're going to do stuff and then not doing it, and then people not holding them accountable for that.
So, absolutely, that is by far the most common complaint that any of aerospace fans or even employees in the industry would state, which is that Elon, and it's not just SpaceX that he gets called on this, where he overpromises and he's not able to realistically come up with dates that are true or accurate. So I certainly can't defend them about that. What I would say is that part of the phenomenon that we see with what SpaceX is doing is that they're doing pretty quick iteration and iterative production on their hardware, in which they not only seem to address maybe what might have been a faulty system or component or problem in a past flight, but they'll fix that problem and also introduce several other new things into the rocket, and they seem to do it unabashedly, right? They're like crazy. It's like fixing 12 things in your software and then compiling it and setting go, and they're doing it with rockets, and it's for me that's kind of impressive. Now that doesn't mean that that's why they're not delivering on time, but I think that that really speaks a lot to the mindset that the company is sort of being faithful to, which is that we kind of are being very aggressive in what we're trying to accomplish, and part of that will mean that things go as expected, and some of that means that it won't. Falcon Heavy, that specific story, so to speak, I think will be a very interesting story to hear more about in a few years, when we see what really happened during the development, when we see if there weren't any other maybe political pressure or I don't want to disclose what I think is personally going on, but let's just say that I don't think it's as straightforward as everybody makes it seem to be. I think that there's other forces that are causing the delay for Falcon Heavy. When Shotwell has stated that they decided to back off on the early development or the speedy development of it because their manifest dictated that they could and they needed to work in other areas. That's kind of the official, I think, story or message that they've been giving. But you know, we've seen it time and time again, and that certainly doesn't speak to the fact that they're well behind their launches for this year that they were hoping to do. Although the last thing I saw Elon make a comment about is that he really thinks it's going to accelerate as we get towards the end of the year. But he's got to say that because they've been making these huge promises about you know, frequency of flights, and they're just not happening.
Yeah, their launch cadence is
suffering. It's not good. And we've seen, I think the second thing that we would find people complaining about, if not the first thing that they would complain about, is their reliability, their ability to launch on time and not have you know, postponed launch windows.
I think this last flight was their first without a, it didn't delay at all, did it?
It didn't delay. Well, it certainly launched on time. There was another one too, and it's sad that we're saying that there was like just this rare case that we can remember which they were flying on time. So it's certainly more often than not that something gets bumped, whether it's weather. I mean, for the weather part, I don't think it's fair to blame them for the weather. But
no, of course not.
There's certainly been a lot of issues in the past where many people had made an effort to go watch a launch and they weren't able to see it. And I don't know how that translates to, you know, ULA or even Russia. I mean, those guys have been flying and have flown many more missions than SpaceX has. But, you know, if they can tackle those two things, sure, I think a lot of people would be more impressed. If they can tackle the cadence like you talked about, and if they're able to launch when they say they're going to launch, a lot of people are going to, I think, feel like, okay, so now they're able to be, you know, stepping up to a ULA level, right? They're able to deliver when they say they're going to deliver. But, you know, at the same time, again, I think that the technology leaps that they're trying to make are part of the problem in their ability to sort of predict and to deliver on time. It's really hard to predict when things are going to occur if you're doing something that's kind of new to an industry, and it's really hard.
If you were running SpaceX, would you go more towards the iterative updates that they're doing now, or would you do more generational updates like ULA has done?
Yeah. So if you want to fix the cadence problem, I say right now you want to just start cranking out the rockets that they've proven are able to fly, and don't change a thing, and just get production ramped up. I don't know if the problem is the facility size. I don't know if the problem is staffing. I don't know what the problem might be, but I can guarantee you this, and this I can speak to and definitely know, that there's plenty of people right now at SpaceX who are really working this problem, because it is something that is just, you know, known by everybody, and you have, I'm sure you have clients that are, you know, basically stating, we want our things to launch when they need to launch, because we're seeing stories of satellites that cost their companies tons of money when they don't get put up in time to replace old satellites or broken satellites or whatever. I mean, you're talking the savings that they're getting from the cheap launch provider goes out the window pretty quickly if they're not able to get things up on time. So yeah, if I was in charge, I would say, you know, we have to figure out what's going on, and we have to fix it right away, and we have to just start cranking out what we know works. But I can also say, you know, I don't know anything about running a rocket company, and I can guarantee you that there's plenty of people right now that are stressing over this very problem, because this is something that's kind of haunted them for a long time. So yeah, I think that's a great answer what you had, which is that if there was one thing to complain about, certainly their delivery on the time schedule is something that many people would say, yeah, they're really terrible at it. They're just horrible at it. But they landed on a barge. Can I just play that card? Okay.
It did fall over a couple.
It did fall over a couple times. Yeah, it's
And
true.
it did the bounce too.
Bounce.
So
Like a little bunny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not buying into the bounce. I think there was a slide. In fact,
There
I
was
saw
not a
pictures.
slide.
I will.
I
There was
saw.
a bounce
I thought.
and a
I saw
slide.
pictures today. I saw pictures today where there was a sliding mark on the LZ1 pad that somebody shared, and you can actually see where the legs slid and left a scrape mark. So imagine that poor little barge just moving up and down in the swells, and the rocket lands, and it just gracefully slides to the side without a hop. I think that that's very probable of what happened.
I've
But
watched.
I'm going to show you something, Jerome.
Okay, good. Thank you. Bounce.
Watch it.
It bounced.
Watch it. That's from
I don't see
SpaceX's
a
own
bounce.
feed.
It
I see a
bounced.
slide. I still see a slide.
Nope, it goes. It has a definite hop up there.
You know, this is like somebody that, it's hard to say, painted the Mona Lisa and then was like, well, that signature in the corner just is a little bit the wrong color. I mean, really, it's the Mona Lisa. You need to just be happy with it, and don't worry about the little details like a hop or not a hop or a slide or whatever.
Yeah.
Really? Seriously?
That's
But
all
if
I
we
got
were-
to say about
But
that.
but if we were talking about ULA or another company, especially ULA, just so you could tweak me a little bit.
I don't think we would have any.
You would definitely say there was a hop. You would say that there was a hop. You'd start doing the little bunny hop. You'd
Mm-hmm.
start hopping up
Again,
and down in your chair.
I'm not sure why you want to focus on the hop. I mean, because it doesn't really mean anything, kind of. I mean, so it hops. So you could argue that the deck
Yes.
of the boat was going
The
up and down, or
The reason why is because you don't see it, so it makes it that much better.
okay. Well, let's just assume that it hopped like a bunny, and let's just say it even hopped twice. I mean, who cares? It landed on a barge. Can we just take pleasure in that?
It's absolutely great. We love it. It's been done.
And it bounced.
It bounced.
Oh. I'm surprised you guys didn't say that it took longer for the barge to get back in with the rocket, and then the huge time delay it took to get that puppy unloaded and go horizontal. I mean, that took a really long time.
I know, because who was sending me messages? Oh, they've cut the camera feed from Port Canaveral. I can't see my beloved booster anymore.
Your beloved. Oh my
It was
God.
not me. It was not me. I was never.
I'm pretty sure I could pull those messages out.
I was just trying to be friendly.
That's sort
So-
right then, huh?
Is that what you call it? I
So-
call it.
There you go.
Let's dream about the future, because I think dreaming about the future is fun, especially with what these guys are talking about. There's a lot of talk about sending Red Dragon and doing different missions to Mars, not with people in there, but maybe just various cargo or rovers or whatever. I mean, that I think would be exciting. Sending, what is it, Blue Dragon that they want to send to Europa or some other moon. I mean, it's wonderful to think about the different missions that they're going to be able to tackle. The interior design of the Dragon V2 for the astronauts, I mean, it's like 4 giant iPads next to each other with a huge moving panel. And then who even cares, because most of the stuff is going to be automated, although I don't know if the astronauts are going to like it being so automated. But I mean, there's just a lot of really cool technology that's going on with what they're creating. Falcon Heavy, I believe, is going to happen. I can't tell you when I think it's going to happen, but I believe that rocket's going to come into existence without a doubt. And I don't know that I could sit here.
The one that's been postponed since 2012.
Oh, it's absolutely been postponed. That's without a doubt.
And
sure.
the one whose specs were supposed to be released the same week or the week after the conference in February, and SpaceX still hasn't released that yet? That rocket?
No.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Ooh.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Them's fighting
It's
words.
going
Them's
to
fighting
happen.
words.
I can just tell you that I see progress on SLS. They submit stuff. I know that's they're welding fly articles right now.
Man, well, let's hope that they both happen quickly. that would be really fun for any of the space enthusiasts out there. I think that it would be really fun to have multiple new vehicles, and I'm really looking forward to Vulcan. I think that that's going to be an awesome
Agreed, yeah.
system.
I give you a hard time about this, but I'm really looking forward to seeing the Falcon Heavy take flight.
I would love to see it go sooner than later. And yeah, I'm mad that Gwen said that they were going to release numbers and then they didn't. And I've let people that I know I could let, is there any way to encourage her to do that, because she made a promise again? And usually Gwen's really good about what she says is going to happen happens. Elon shooting off the cusp, that's just Elon being Elon, and I can understand that. But Gwen has been really, really, really reserved in what she promises, and she's usually really, really truthful in what she says. So that was disappointing that we didn't get numbers from Falcon Heavy, that's for sure. And for those folks that don't know what Falcon Heavy is about, you're looking at basically 3 cores of the Falcon 9, and Elon just made this comment that he wishes that they called it the Falcon 27 as opposed to the Falcon Heavy. But basically 3 cores, so you're talking about 27 Merlin 1Ds that are going to send this thing up, and it's going to have the capacity for tremendous payload. And then the 3 cores hopefully are able to come back, and they're able to reuse the 3 cores. So it would be a very neat feat to watch it not only take off, because I'm sure it would be just an amazing loudness that rumbles your chest, but to actually see cores come back to land, and then the other core land maybe on the barge. I mean, all of that I think would just be phenomenal, and the capacity is supposed to be stunning. It would be the biggest rocket, sans Saturn V, and if it flies before SLS, then it would be the biggest at the time that's available. So once SLS comes out, then we'll see what happens. But I think the Falcon Heavy is going to be neat. And then you've got the Raptor motors that they're supposedly working on. The Raptor motors are the next generation propulsion system. Oh, you broke up, sorry?
Those are the methane-powered ones, correct?
Correct. And those are supposed to be stunning, but a lot of that is theoretical, and nobody has seen, I don't believe, or heard of any sort of tests that are going on around that. So, from a reviewing of the company standpoint, there's plenty that I didn't talk about. There's a lot of information out there, sure, that you can go and focus on. I will mention also that the Grasshopper was something that was fun. I complained that they didn't show a lot of the launch details, but they do show a lot of things. They show barge. Oh, there's somebody dancing. It's a dog.
And
I'm
Ozzy.
sorry, Jerome. I want Austin to be able to see him.
Uh-huh.
Hold on a
because-
minute. Hold on a
Hi,
minute.
Austin. Say
There
hi
we go.
Say hi to Austin. I have to say hi to Austin, my brother, before he decides he wants to fall asleep.
Before they have lights out.
Well, they don't technically have lights out in tech school for him.
Yeah, he's progressed past that.
He has. But sorry, Jerome. I didn't. It's payback for when you completely.
I was going to say, I knew that you did it on purpose. I get it.
I did.
I get it.
Sorry. I'm very sorry. My earache.
I don't think you are.
My earache.
I don't think you are.
My earache is getting worse, so my throat's starting to
Oh.
get. Yeah.
Well, we can try to wrap it up.
I'm done peppering
No.
Jerome with questions, so.
I don't know that there's
really
really anything specifically that I've missed.
you did. I know we attacked you about SpaceX, and
Attack away.
Yes,
Attack away.
but we just like to tweak you, and it's
Yes.
fun.
Tweak me.
We do. We
Tweak
like
me
to
all
tweak
you
you
want.
about it. Yes, I know. Just like you like to tweak me. So we're.
I have
tweaking you
no
right back.
vested interest in space. I didn't throw money at Elon saying, I have no vested interest.
I think
I just
Jerome
like-
needs to get a tattoo, like the fingers like this.
Oh.
Hashtag fangirl. That's yes.
If that happens, then I'm going to be worthy of all of the teasing that you need to leap upon me.
If we didn't care about you, Jerome, we wouldn't do it.
But at the
Wait a
same
minute.
time,
No, yeah, never mind.
it would be dishonest for me to say that I hadn't thought about maybe a tattoo, what I would get from a SpaceX perspective. I mean, I would be lying if I said that didn't cross my mind.
No, are you
So-
seriously? X marks the spot.
I'm.
No.
What just happened? What just happened? I'm looking at my cheat sheet to see if there's anything interesting that I wanted to share.
If you need the X to mark the spot,
Okay.
maybe.
If there's somebody that cracks himself
Oh,
up
he's
that
on
much,
a
what is
Hublet.
going
That's
on?
right. Tiny Hublet.
It's huge. It fills the screen. It's huge. Okay.
All
Sorry,
right, Rochelle, you wanted to talk about United Launch Alliance.
Oh God. Actually, no. You need to talk about Sierra Nevada for Alec.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if you wanted to cover ULA first and then hand it
I
to me,
think
but
I'm going to do a little bit of Aerojet Rocketdyne, and then there's
Oh no,
too
you
much.
should
I
go
mean,
first, and then no, you should go first. No, you should go first. Okay, well you go. Okay. Sorry.
now we know what Jerome does in his spare time. He plays with dolls.
And the mommy and the daddy
Do,
hold hands.
do you
Okay,
have
so
your Malibu Barbie dream house set up?
you have no idea.
okay, so all right.
The rails, they're way over there. We left them a long time ago.
If Jason was
Yes.
here, if Jason was here, which by the way he's watching, hi Jason, he'd be going like this, like this, and then like this, and then he would turn his back to us because he was playing video games. This
So
is what
did you
happens.
want me to move forward with Sierra Nevada, or
Yes,
do you?
I
Okay.
do want you to move forward with Sierra Nevada. Yes, please.
Oh, jeez, now I gotta act like I'm prepared or something. Okay. All right. So Sierra Nevada, if you don't know who they are, they have the Dream Chaser, which they were kind of the fan favorite during the first commercial crew announcement. People wanted they wanted Sierra Nevada to be selected because it does look like a miniature space shuttle. Let me pull up a picture of it real quick. Maybe. All right. So this is the Dream Chaser atop the Atlas V. And so you can see it does look like a tiny space shuttle. It doesn't have a cargo bay like the shuttle did. Meant to carry up to 7 astronauts to low Earth orbit, ostensibly to the space station. But it was not selected. So Boeing and SpaceX were the ones that were selected for commercial crew. And a lot of people were disappointed that Sierra Nevada was left out. But during the commercial cargo, the CRS-2 contracts that were announced, NASA selected Sierra Nevada for their cargo version of Dream Chaser. So if you look at it here, you can see it folded up in the fairing of an Atlas V, and it can also, one of the cool things about the Dream Chaser cargo is it can also fly on an Ariane. So there's a multiple adapter there that can fit on different launch vehicles, so long as it can fit inside the fairing. It's the same outer mold line, so outwardly it looks the same as the crewed Dream Chaser, but it can carry quite a bit of up mass, and let's see if I can, I know it's kind of hard to see, let's zoom in. So, and here you can see the aft unpressurized cargo module. This is where it would dock and they could dispose of hardware on return. This is the crewed version. There are a lot of similarities between the two and some differences. But what's cool about this is it will land on a traditional runway. So any downmass materials, be it experiments or medical samples or whatever, can be brought back and removed from Dream Chaser basically as soon as it rolls to a stop, because they're going to be using the green propellant in this as well. So you don't have to worry about getting rid of any hydrazine leaks, things like that. So this is going to be a game changer for Sierra Nevada and for bringing materials back from ISS. Hopefully it will lead to the crewed version one day being used. And when I say crude, I don't mean like C-R-U-D-E, I mean C-R-E-W-E-D. Because apparently saying a manned spacecraft nowadays is not the right thing to say.
Don't do it. Don't do it. You don't want to do it.
I know.
Don't say it.
So yeah, I mean it will fly on top of the Atlas V. It can fly on top of the Ariane. I'm sure they could build If SpaceX develops, I think they need a larger fairing for SpaceX for it to fly on top of that, just like they were talking about with the Bigelow modules. And one of the things it can do as well that the shuttle used to do, in which they now rely on, stop it, Jerome. What they rely on, what the viewers can't see, is that Jerome is harassing me in our private chat. That
I would never. First of all, I would never do that. I would just
I know
let's
you
just go on
wouldn't.
record.
You're an angel.
And this is just to distract you from your train of thought. Go ahead.
Well, you're doing a good job. So it can actually reboost ISS, which they're having to rely on the Soyuz capsules to do at the moment. Each Dream Chaser is supposed to be able to be used at least 15 times without having to refurbish most of the machinery. So it could be a really big deal, and I would love to see it move into the crewed version as well. So that's kind of Dream Chaser in a nutshell. I know Alec may have wanted some deeper dive with it. Sorry, you just get a little bit of a teaser there, Alec. That's all you're getting tonight. If anybody wants to take a look at some more, you absolutely can.
Well, go ahead and finish your train of thought. Go ahead.
Just encourage people to go take a look at Sierra Nevada's website. They do have quite a bit of information there.
Yeah. So it looks like a lot of the attraction for this, I think not only people out there, fans of the space shuttle, is that the design, of course, is appealing. The fact that it has the ability to land where it needs to, as opposed to out in the middle of the ocean. I think people are very appreciative of that capability. It being at the top of the rocket obviously is nice, and it being hidden in the fairing obviously alleviates a lot of the fears that many people might have about it taking debris impacts and whatnot. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's kind of obvious, though, that NASA would want them to prove the cargo aspect of it before they jump in and say, it can support a crewed version of it. So I don't know how people would not. Or I can see people being disappointed. I can understand that. I don't know how people would really fault that way of thinking, though, that it needs to do cargo first.
No, I agree with that, and that's. I think that is a very logical way to take this very step approach.
Like everybody else, I would love to see it fly. And again, I don't want just one launch provider or one entity to provide services. I think we should have multiple variation, because it has different capability depending on what is going up. And there was something that I read about Dream Chaser that I'm totally forgetting right this second, that made it stand out from the others as well. And for the life of me, I can't remember what it is that I read, but I think it's a neat design. I think it's really cool, and I'd love to see it fly. And so I hope that really does happen.
And because they are launcher agnostic, at least to some large degree, it could mean that it flies on top of a Falcon 9.
Yeah.
But
that'd be great.
That's my Sierra Nevada talk in a nutshell. So there you go.
Well, I'm glad you brought them up. I think that
Thank you.
And I think it's important to talk about the companies that aren't SpaceX, that aren't ULA. So.
That aren't SpaceX. Blasphemy.
Okay, so you guys got to talk amongst yourselves for a second.
Okay.
What do you think is the neatest thing going on right now with these various vehicles? I mean, they've all got different strengths and weaknesses for sure, but is there anything that stands out in your mind that might be interesting to see what happens next?
Well, I kind of brought it up when I was first talking about Rocket Lab, is that there seems to be a stratification of the launch market. You're going to have your big payloads. So NASA wants to get to Mars. SpaceX wants to get to Mars. But then you have the CubeSats, which are really, really taking off in popularity, because you can do a lot in a little package as electronics become miniaturized and the batteries become more efficient, the solar cells become more efficient. There's much less of a need for these 200 to 300 kilogram satellites. You can do a lot in a much smaller package. So a company like Rocket Labs, or a co-manifested load on an Ariane or a Falcon or on an Atlas, you're able to get a lot more bang for your buck. So that's another way that the cost of access to space is going down, just because of the miniaturization of the hardware to do the work you need it to do. So I like the way that's going.
Yeah, totally agree. I was not really impressed with the discussion of CubeSats way back when, and that has surprisingly taken me in a 180 position, in which I'm so fascinated by what the CubeSats are doing and the various utilization of that hardware design, and the expandability of having a 1x3, allowing for various electronics and testing instruments and whatnot. I love the fact that it's bringing students and college students specifically on board with trying to figure out what would you do with such a small package, what could you do with such a small package, and all the talks that I've seen, specifically the one that I saw on Thursday that you were covering, really does capture your imagination. It makes you really think of it very differently, because before we're only sending up these ginormous satellites that nobody could really think about, because that was left for the big corporations that could afford to spend billions of dollars on launch as well as hardware. So this really changes the way of thinking about what you might want to do and play with. My first gut impulse is, though, do we need all that little debris floating around up there? And so I guess we'll see what happens, how that's managed and whatnot. But I think it's awesome.
Now, how much of that JPL presentation were you able to catch?
So I went back and watched the whole thing.
Okay, so I am terrible with names, so forgive me. I do forget the name of the actual hardware.
Guy?
Not the guy,
okay, not the guy.
Actual project. The two different CubeSats are going to be launching alongside the Mars lander. That their sole purpose is there to relay the data, because it's landing in the comm shadow, so there's no direct communication with Earth. So during EDL, entry, descent, and landing, they want to be able to get that data and know that the lander has survived. So these two different CubeSats will be relaying the comms data from the lander, because it's in the comm shadow of Earth, or Mars is in between the lander and Earth. And so having those two things there that are just these small little CubeSats of relaying that important data, I think is kind of cool. Yeah, they're disposable, they're not critical towards mission success, but they found another way to use these small little satellites to fill in the gap.
Like cell tower repeaters. I mean, it's kind of a very interesting utilization of such a small package, if they can get it to work, and I think that obviously they're thinking about how they're going to get it to work, so that's neat. It also touches on a subject that we didn't talk about with SpaceX, which is that one of the things that they did also is they started a Seattle company where they're exploring how they're going to utilize satellites to improve any sort of communication that they need to cover. If they are to get anybody to Mars, how can we somehow benefit that communication, as well as maybe provide the internet coverage and access to everybody on the planet. But that, again, is something that I'm sure that a company like SpaceX or any other satellite company out there right now are very fascinated by what is possible. And certainly you had some very smart guys and gals that are talking about what are the potential and the possibilities. I think it's a great example of how you can take that package and make it very practical, which is to help benefit the relay and communication of any signal from that. I think it's a great pull that you just thought of. I had forgotten about that, and that's really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. And another thing too, and this kind of dovetails into something I saw that that they hold on just a sec. I saw at Marshall Spaceflight Center at a media day not too long ago. So you've heard of ion thrusters, the electric engine, but they're also working on iodine thrusters. So they have the powdered iodine, and in a very small package, and for a CubeSat, they can get up to 1 kilometer a second of delta V. So that's pretty significant for such a small device to be able to get up to 1,000 meters a second and change of velocity. That gives them a lot of latitude to move to different orbits, to do different things, and then to deorbit itself when it's done. So I thought that was kind of cool.
I think that it's going to be one of the most interesting things to watch from our perspective to see what it does, because I think it really has opened up a whole different spectrum of capability, and if they can just miniaturize it. I mean, that's kind of what Stephen Hawking was talking about and what he's supporting in the Alpha Centauri mission that they want to do, right? It's the miniaturization that makes things possible, and the CubeSat is kind of along those lines, where we're taking something that's just so small with such little mass, and so what would it take to make it a much more interesting entity up there? And I think that many people have not thought of a lot of what they're capable of doing, and it'll be fun to see what happens over the next 5 years, I think for sure.
Yeah, and I know that ULA has promised a couple of or 3 CubeSat slots on a couple of upcoming missions for free launch and integration services for universities. And if they're able to continue doing that, I mean, that will really boost the research capabilities that quite often have been closed off to a great number of our research institutions, because you normally have to go to somewhere big like an MIT or a Caltech or Georgia Tech, for these big sort of research opportunities. But when you have a company like ULA, and I'm sure SpaceX is probably going to follow suit, providing these sorts of abilities that had been a closed avenue before, that will be a significant boost in the sort of science and research that they can do.
Yeah. Planet Labs is in San Francisco as well, and they're working on things along this line. So that's somebody that I'm kind of watching personally because of their location. And then Planetary Resources is also setting up their small telescopes. They're not quite CubeSat size, but they are relatively small compared to the other things that have been sent up. So clearly miniaturization is what folks are focused on, and clearly because weight and size and mass is everything to do with rocket launching. So until that is changed, I think we're going to constantly see ways in which people push the envelope in this regard. And I thought very little of it when I first heard about it, and then the more I thought about it and the more that you read and see, you just kind of go, this has got really a lot of potential to be super cool. So
yeah.
We'll see what happens.
And one of the things that they brought up was being able to have a swarm of CubeSats that can give real-time traffic information, real-time weather information, real-time any sort of information that people would normally rely on their cell phone to be this data channel. Like, when you're using Google Maps, you're opting in to having your speed data sent to Google. And that's how they build their traffic maps. That's how they know when there's a slowdown, because people are using Google Maps. So rather than having to rely on that incomplete data set, they can now get real-time information from the swarm of CubeSats that are always there, for better or for worse.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's interesting, and I love to see. I'm very curious to see if we do anything along the same lines as far as rovers that we send up, size being what it is, and just trying to figure out different ways in which we can utilize the different technologies, especially as we go smaller and smaller. It's just huge potential, and CubeSats are pretty cool.
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go, talking about small things again.
Oh boy. It's huge. It's ginormous. It doesn't even fit on screen.
I'm surprised you haven't broke it yet.
I had to silicone it.
Did you?
I did, because it was falling apart kind of. It's my first 3D printed. Oh, don't even. I didn't put silicone on that. Just please keep it.
I said
nothing. Yeah. Nothing.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that to you. Actually, no, I'm not, Kurt. But I do want to talk a little bit about Aerojet Rocketdyne. There I go. Why can I not pronounce that name? I'm sorry, Ian. Aerojet Rocketdyne is a company that had started here in Pasadena. And they had merged with Pratt & Whitney Rocketdyne back in 2013. And so that's how they became Aerojet Rocketdyne. And one of the things I found interesting was, let me see if I can get this. They had the liquid rocket boosters that propelled Titan to deliver the first manned Gemini flight into orbit in 1965. I mean, this is not a brand new company by any means. It's a small company, but it's not brand new. And I think it was really important to bring them up and talk about them, especially since they have their RL-10s that are part of the Centaur stage on the Atlas V's. Thank you, Kurt, for looking that up for me. They also are going to be powering, yes, they're also going to be powering the upper stage of the SLS. Yes, the SLS, I know there are some people who love it, some people who hate it, some people who really, really, really hate it. Unfortunately, you know, Constellation didn't make it, so SLS is Congress's. Okay, we're not going to get into that.
That's a discussion for another night.
Yeah, I think that's a discussion because I can start being a complainer if I do that. I also want Eileen Drake is their CEO and president, who she's doing an amazing job. She's a class act lady, somebody that I really think that women in the space industry can look up to. Well, not only her, but also, wow, what is his name? Who do I fangirl over? You could tell I don't.
Tory Bruno?
Tory Bruno, yes. I do not feel good right now. I'm so sorry. But again, Aerojet Rocketdyne is a really cool little company, and I just wanted to give them a little shout out.
And one of the things that, you know, so they've actually been involved with the U.S. space program in a lot of regards for a long time, like you said.
Yes, they have.
And they're the prime contractor for the RS-25 engine, and with the Space Shuttle main engine. So they're very integral to our nation's spaceflight capabilities. They may not be building the rockets themselves, but without the bits they are building, our rockets don't go up.
No, absolutely. I mean, some of their customers are Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, the U.S. Army, Missile Defense Agency, the U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force. I mean, they have a good list of customers, and they're small but mighty.
Like Hublet.
Okay.
He didn't even pick up on it. He's just sitting there.
He's desensitized.
He's desensitized. He's gonna start ignoring it, and it's not gonna be fun anymore.
We've actually run for about 2 hours. That's
yeah,
a little bit more than I thought we would. So I'm out of information unless either of you guys have questions for me.
I don't. Does anybody have any questions for me on Aerojet?
You know, I have just a quick story. I at a college in '85-ish, I was working at a infrared sensor company, and one of the customers I clearly remember being on the envelope that had all the documentation that accompanied the sensors that we were testing was Aerojet Rocketdyne. It's just one of those companies that has been in my vocabulary for a very long time, and I've not really watched closely what they've done as far as aerospace goes, and that's something that I'm just sort of relatively new to. But clearly they're integral in how we get a lot of our stuff done, and despite a certain VP that said some bad things about them, I think that they deserve a lot of credit for things that they've done very, very well, and I think that they'll continue to be successful.
Agreed.
I agree too. Yeah. So if nobody has anything else, we've been going for 2 hours, which I'm actually pretty surprised. I didn't think that the show was going to run that long tonight, but it did. That's because Jerome was fangirling over SpaceX. We have to do that before.
You know, and I could have gone on way longer, but Kurt was interrupting every second I was talking, and unbelievable.
How else am I supposed to show how smart I am unless I get to ask you questions?
I didn't get to talk about the various places that SpaceX is located in, Texas, McGregor, and Florida, and
Hawthorne?
California, and Vandenberg, and
Right down the
Hawthorne, and
freeway.
I mean they're like everywhere. They're right down the freeway.
Right down the freeway.
I didn't get to touch on that. I didn't get to touch on how tall their rocket is, which is 224 feet, something like that. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of detail. I encourage everybody out there to read the book on Elon, because there's a lot of detail about SpaceX in there, and it's kind of interesting. And you don't have to be a fangirl to read it and enjoy it. I'm just saying it's a lot going on. They're doing some really, really cool stuff. And
not going to get his book.
Oh, you sure need to read it. I'm sending you a copy right now.
I still have to see The Right Stuff, apparently.
Yes, you do.
Don't open up that Pandora's box.
Apparently. I need to see 2001: A Space Odyssey.
No, you don't need to see that one. It's not very good.
I still see The Martian.
Yes.
Can we just agree that The Martian is one of the coolest, most accurate space movies? It's not completely accurate. I know there's a lot of atmospheric issues, but let me just tell you that it really touches on some key components that I'm super excited about, like the Hermes ship and what it takes to get that ship up there, and how long it takes to get to Mars and all of that stuff. I mean, definitely see The Martian. You've definitely got to see that.
Oh, yes, you do.
Going to science the shit out of it, right?
Yeah, science the crap out of it.
Not the word. Oh, but Ethan's there, so no. Okay. All right, so we don't have anything else. No more shenanigans. We're going to sign off. And as always, go out, look up, and discover. We'll see you guys next time. Bye. Thanks again.